Hi, my name is Jamie Rue, and I'm going to talk to you today about The Beginning of Everything by Robyn Schneider. Okay, now as I mentioned in my first video, I have tried to read this book before. I found it on Goodreads and I borrowed it at the library, and I just couldn't finish it before I had to return it. Now, when I went on Goodreads to find out more about this book, I saw a couple of reviews saying that they didn't really get some stuff about the book, and I see that now after I've read it. All in all, I give this book a 5 out of 10. I think it's a little bit of one of those overhyped books. I think it's not as good as people say that it is. It wasn't one of those books that made me want to hold it forever and cuddle with it, but it was a decent book. This book is about a boy named Ezra Faulkner, and he is supposed to be homecoming king. He's the captain of the tennis team. He is the most popular guy in school, and he has a beautiful girlfriend, and that all changes when he catches his girlfriend cheating on him at a party, and then he decides stupidly to storm out of the house. He walks into a street, he gets hit by a black car, and his right leg is shattered. And he spends the entire summer healing and kind of removing himself from the popular crowd, and on the first day back at school, he starts sitting with the less popular crowd, and he meets a girl named Cassidy Thorpe. Now, that is all in the first couple chapters. Now, this book, like I said before, was not the best book ever, but it's definitely worth a read. Robyn Schneider's writing style reminded me a lot of John Green, so if you are a John Green fan, then I highly recommend that you read this. It's similar to Paper Towns, a little bit similar to Looking for Alaska. So if you liked either of those books, I highly recommend checking this out. Now is the time where all the people who have not read this book go away, because it's about to get very spoilery. I understand why people on Goodreads were saying that it didn't make sense how Ezra just suddenly fell away from the popular crowd, because he did not have to fall away from the popular crowd. It wasn't people were oh no, you can't sit with us. They invited him to come back. They invited him to sit. And even though Evan and Charlotte were now hooking up, and so it was a little bit awkward, it didn't mean that he couldn't sit with them. It wasn't that he was ostracized from the popular crowd. He could have sat with them. So the way he figures it, everyone gets a tragedy, right? That sounds very similar to John Green's line of the way I figure it, everyone gets a miracle. It's very similar. Everyone does sort of get a tragedy, whether it's a mini tragedy or a big one. Toby's tragedy in the beginning of catching a head, that's tragic, but it's not his tragedy, I don't think. I also don't think that Toby would be made fun of for catching a dead person's head. Oh, you caught someone's head. Wouldn't you just be sad about the fact that someone died? You wouldn't be haha, you caught someone's decapitated head. You would be I'm so sorry that you've been scarred for life by catching this thing on a roller coaster. This innocent 10-year-old just catching someone's decapitated head. I feel you wouldn't make fun of someone for that, but then there are those people that probably would. So Cassidy Thorpe falls very heavily, I think, into the manic pixie dream girl until the end. She even says, "Misimagine me" at the end. She acknowledges that she is a manic pixie dream girl to Ezra. It seems I'm really criticizing this book, and I did like the book, don't get me wrong. It was pretty up there. It wasn't I hated it. There were things that I was just kind of well, there was a bit of suspension of disbelief that you needed to have with this book. Okay, so the fact that her brother died, and that's the reason that she stopped debating, I guess that sort of makes sense, and I also get that she doesn't want to talk about it. I think, however, that if you're in a relationship with someone, maybe you should let the person know that your brother died, so, they don't sign you up for the debate team, which I guess they weren't in a relationship yet, but still. Debate team is not something that I'm very familiar with, so I don't know how things work with debate teams. I love how they just get left in a hotel room by themselves, and the teacher's just oh, don't leave rooms. And I'm they're not gonna not leave their rooms? What kind of teacher are you? Okay, so that big party happens with the debate team, and Ezra and Cassidy start dating, and it's very cute. Now, I don't want to say that Cassidy is pretentious necessarily, but she does sort of have an upper crusty, I know more than you kind of thing going on, except she doesn't really say it ever. I really don't like Luke, who hates Ezra so much. It's very annoying. It was very frustrating. On the bright side, though, he did invite him to the movie night thing. The Panopticon is like the labyrinth of the beginning of everything, which is where I go back to why this book is like John Green's books, because this book is like a mixture of Paper Towns and Looking for Alaska, and I don't want to say that Robyn Schneider read Looking for Alaska and Paper Towns and thought, ooh, this would be really good if they were combined, but it sort of seems like she did, because Ezra, who has the name Ezra, no offense if your name is Ezra, and then Quentin, who has the name Quentin, like, it seems like Robyn Schneider just read the two books and she was like, let's just mash these two together and change the names, and then here is the result of the two books being mashed together. I'm not implying that she copied John Green or anything at all. Which again is not to say that I didn't like the book, it's so much like John Green's writing that I'm just like, you did not have an idea for your own novel. Panopticon is like so close to the labyrinth that I'm just like, there is no way that this is not based on a John Green book. It's not possible. Okay, so the fact that Cassidy's brother was the one that was driving that black car that night when Ezra got his leg shattered, that was huge. That was not what I was expecting. I was definitely expecting, like, I thought Cassidy was being serious, you know? I had a bad feeling about Cassidy from the first time she was introduced, and I'm sorry, Cassidy, for, you know, just being like, oh, you're gonna betray Ezra one day. I mean, she didn't really. I thought she was actually being serious with the whole, oh, you're a hick, why would I be in a relationship with you, I have another boyfriend. I thought she was not kidding. I also thought that at some point Ezra was gonna go back to the jock table, and he did, sort of, except it didn't go the way that I thought it was gonna go. I thought it was gonna be more like a big deal. I thought it was gonna blow up really huge, but Toby was just like, you are not abandoning me again. That was kind of it. Cassidy saying, when I look at you, all I see is my brother's face. That makes sense. But he's the one that ran Ezra over, and your brother didn't actually die from that car crash. But it does make sense that you don't want to be reminded of your brother every time you look at your boyfriend. Ezra's senior year basically is all new to him. He's lost everything in a way, and then he has to begin everything. If you have not read this book, which you should have if you watched to this point, then go pick it up, and I hope I see you back at some point in the future. Bye!